The one with Joey's new girlfriend is the 5th episode of the 4th season of Friends. This is directed by Gail Mancuso, and there will be spoilers, of course, as I discuss what happens in this and mention some highlights. And I have to say, it's a really brilliant episode. It's also a great stepping stone for future episodes and some iconic moments, but I won't discuss those here, of course. I won't give any spoilers, but there will be spoilers for this episode. And sometimes when I discuss Friends, I will go through things chronologically. More recently, I've been trying to keep my notes kind of in sections based on each of the main subplots or narratives, and that's worked really well for this episode. So I'll go through them in turn, and I'll go through them in terms of the fewest notes to the most. And the ones that I have the fewest notes on is the story focusing on Phoebe. And it actually starts off tying in two of them at the beginning, where Ross is flaunting the fact that he has a woman's phone number on a piece of paper, and they're in Central Park, and Phoebe sneezes. And it's a brilliant moment because Ross had been boasting about this piece of paper with the number on, and he'd flaunted it literally in Rachel's face, and Rachel grabbed onto it and gave it to Phoebe to sneeze into. Brilliant way to establish the two of the subplots for this episode. And then we have a little bit more of Phoebe, and Phoebe has a cold, as we've established. And she thinks it's given her this sexy voice, and she does sound brilliant, and it's given her this new confidence as well, which I really like. And she sings Smelly Cat, and she also sings My Sticky Shoes, and I cannot hear that song without just instantly hearing Phoebe singing it this way. But of course, this is all building up to an amazing, amazing moment where Phoebe is better. She's no longer got a cold, and Gunther is unwell around her, and desperate to get her sexy voice back, she kisses Gunther. Absolutely love it. I don't think anybody could have guessed at the start of that episode where that would go, and I just think it's really good fun. Then we have the story with Ross and Amanda and Rachel and Josh. Interesting name choice with Josh, considering later on we also have a character called Joshua. Well, I guess the naming of Joshua was interesting. But Josh is played by Brian Fish-Smith, and Rachel's basically dating him to get back at Ross for, well, what she thinks is dating Amanda, but we'll come back to that in a moment. But it's very apparent that both Ross and Rachel are not over their relationship. And they're being very childish, rubbing their current dates in each other's faces, and it's clear that they're still affecting each other. But thankfully, we are at the point where they're affecting each other, but they can spend time in the same room, and we mostly just get comedy out of that. And as I was saying, Ross isn't actually dating Amanda. They went on a play date to, I think, Chuck E. Cheese, and then he went over to her house. She's played very briefly by Laura Interval, and it turns out he's babysitting for her. So it's not the relationship Ross thought he was having. And I love the fact that Monica figuratively banged their heads together and just said, stop this nonsense. You're not actually dating Amanda. Josh is obviously not the right person for Rachel. And I like the fact that she put them in their place. We also have the introduction of Ross's gesture. It is, to quote, the way of giving the finger without actually having to give it. And I'd love to know who came up with that. Maybe that information is online and I can find it somewhere. But if you know, please feel free to share that. But it's surprising that it took 4 seasons, or to the 4th season, for that to make an appearance. And it's so iconic. It's fabulous. I do it in real life. I imagine a lot of people do. And it's just wonderful. So that was a brilliant thing from this episode. And then, last but certainly not least, we have the main part of the episode, and I love this. We have initially Chandler hitting on a woman. We don't know who she is yet, but she's played by Paget Brewster. And we learn actually that this is Kathy, and Joey is dating her. And what's really nice about this is that Joey does seem to have an interest in her. It's not just a one-time fling or anything. It seems like he actually wants to spend quite a bit of time with her. Unfortunately, so does Chandler. And we have that rather moving moment where they're both up in the middle of the night to watch something on TV, and they're bonding, and it's really lovely. And then we have the scene outside where Chandler is chasing after Kathy while she's jogging, and it's just brilliantly executed. Needless to say, Matthew Perry's performance was absolutely perfect. And it's also quite different because we don't get a lot of outside scenes, and when we do, they don't usually take up a large space, but here he's running quite a distance to keep up with her. And I just thought it was performance, and Chandler was absolutely wonderful. And if we hadn't worked it out yet, I feel like that definitely makes it very clear how he feels about her. But it's not clear to Joey. Chandler is actually avoiding Kathy, and Joey thinks it's because he doesn't like her. And he convinces him to go to a restaurant and have a dinner with her and him. And Chandler kind of reluctantly agrees to prove that he doesn't hate Kathy. And Chandler has this outburst in the restaurant away from Kathy, and I think this is a beautiful performance. Matthew Perry really shone in this episode, where Joey tells him to pretend that he likes her. So Chandler comes out with his confession in this huge outburst about how he really feels about her. We, the viewer, know he's being honest, but Joey thinks he's just trying to say that he likes her. And it's really telling. And then it kind of ended on an emotional note with Chandler. Well, it was initially very funny with Joey appearing in the doorway with a dartboard over his area. And then Chandler going over to Monica's and asking if he can sleep on her couch because he doesn't want to be in the room when they're there, in the flat when they're there. And it's quite sad and an emotional way to basically end things for this episode, at least. But we also have a lot of comedy in here, and Kathy is a brilliant character. It's great to see this side of Chandler, and I rather enjoy this episode. I'm sure I always have, and I'm sure I always will do. Definitely a lot of really iconic moments in this, and ultimately, it's pretty awesome. The one with Joey's new girlfriend is rather fabulous, and I will say no more about Kathy as a character for now, but I will when we get there in the future episodes. But for now, the one with Joey's new girlfriend is rather brilliant and an absolute joy to watch.